Hey, I'm Presto, and you're watching Pros and Joycons. Today, we're going to dive into the pros and cons of the long-awaited remake of Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. Finally, the combat style that everybody wanted from Paper Mario is back! After Super's lack of a combat system, the emptiness of Sticker Star and Color Splash's altercations, and the still fun but widely divisive battles of Origami King, it's nice to get back to how this series started on the N64. Now, I wouldn't call this system better than Paper Mario 64's battle system, but I would call it more full. Like that series starter, every attack you do isn't your simple Pokemon, hit button and then it does a thing. Thousand Year Door makes use of action commands, with every attack being a timed button input with your controller. I feel like this game had some standout creative ideas for action commands, and I was constantly surprised by the variety they had here. Of course, this game continues the badge system from the original as well, which is honestly what I had the most fun with here. Every time you level up in this game, you can choose to increase your health, flower points, which lets you do special attacks, or badge points, which lets you equip more badges. I poured every level except for 3 into this badge system, which let me have so much creative control of which badges I could choose to use for an optimal battle strategy. I think I finally get the Boy Scouts now! Add to that fun boss fights, additional strategy, special moves, items, and even more, and you end up with what's actually a pretty complicated and rewarding battle system. One that teaches you its ins and outs thoroughly. Outside of battles, this game can be annoying, especially looking at the first 2 chapters. Each of these had obtuse and downright frustrating puzzles that didn't make sense to someone who hadn't played the game before, also known as me. From the 3rd chapter and onward, it's not as bad, but there are still some frustrating moments. Once you learn to speak the game's language, it's a lot easier. Thanks, Duolingo! But of course, those are things that are both in the original release. We're here to talk about the remake, and the thing that's immediately obvious when looking at this game is how much they improved the visuals. Everything here has been up to the quality of Origami King, and in some places even above that game. This remake looks very shiny throughout, almost laminated in its style. I quite enjoy this, and I think it looks leagues better than the muddy GameCube version. They even added back sprites to some of the characters while they're facing backwards for this remake. Everything here on the visual side looks so much better than the original. Unlike the very tiny, minuscule, barely noticeable, small, puny, minute, microscopic, little itty-bitty visual upgrade that Luigi's Mansion 2 and Donkey Kong Country got on their Switch ports. In the Switch remake, they changed the dialogue to be more accurate to the original Japanese version of the game. This includes a controversial change from the original American dialogue to the character Vivian. I personally don't consider this a con, but as I know a couple people do, I figured I'd put it in here. This game has to have one of, if not my favorite hub area of any video game. Rogueport is a classic hive of scum and villainy, which is really funny when you put it into the Mario format. I mean, if you had told me there was such thing as a Pianta Mafia in a Mario game, I probably would have believed you, because I'm gullible. This town does such a great job of setting the stage, pun intended, for the rest of the game, and always feels new and fresh when you return after each chapter. Things like upgrading partners, gambling your coins away in the casino, and listening to Luigi prattle on about his amazing tales of glory that really aren't that glorious, is honestly a standout to me, and I always explore thoroughly when I return. Speaking of returning to places you've been before, Thousand Year Door does that a lot. This especially shows in Chapter 5, which takes place in a relatively small area, and so makes you run out to find a character. Have the character request something, go request a different character for that thing, only to have him ask for a different thing, referred to henceforth as Thing 2. So then you have to go out to get Thing 2, bring it back to Character 2 to get Thing 1, which you can finally bring back to Character 1, who you then... yeah, you get the point. There's so much unnecessary backtracking in this game, and just a lot of walking in general. I feel like segments like this were just added to pad the runtime of the game, and really don't feel necessary, just like me. However, other than this padding, the story here is generally really good. I haven't had a game story capture my imagination as much since I played Beacon Pines, which I will be talking about this spooky month. The story here starts very different from most Mario games, as Peach isn't kidnapped by Bowser. In fact, Bowser is barely in the game's story at all. Instead, these villains called the X-Nauts have kidnapped Princess Peach as part of their journey to acquire the Crystal Stars, shiny rocks used to unlock the titular Thousand Year Door. Luckily, the princess left a magical map to the stars' locations in Mario's possession. Why would you trust a plumber with that? No. The game is split up into different chapters where you'll collect crystal stars. Each chapter has a completely different theme and tone to it, while still fitting in with the overall narrative. I really love how diverse this setup is, and how each chapter takes steps to be different and memorable in its own way. The dialogue here is all witty and well written, and Nintendo of America did a great job bringing it over. Unfortunately, there's a lot of dialogue. And I mean a lot. Sometimes, I swear, these people don't want to shut up. Or more accurately, the game doesn't want to shut up. Sometimes dialogue just goes on and 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 silence! One of the best parts of this game, and what makes this and Paper Mario 64 so iconic, are the partners. You pretty much get one every chapter, and each has their own unique character and arcs that get resolved in their chapters. However, unlike Paper Mario 64, these partners don't become borderline useless after the chapter they were introduced in. I found myself using every partner regularly in the final chapter, although keeping Vivian and Bobbery as my frontliners, as they are the two best partners. Each is immensely helpful in battle, from swallowing enemies to arson! The biggest change here is that this game gives your partner their own health bar, which makes you have to watch out for them more and lets you use them as a human shield once in a while. After all, what else are friends for? This remade version of the game runs at 30 FPS instead of the 60 FPS that the original game runs at. I assume this decision was made as a way to make the game run better, and with it looking as beautiful as it does, I really don't mind. They remade the entire soundtrack, and boy is it superb! I really like the gravitas that the full Origami King-like orchestration lends to this game, which is obvious from the moment you reach Rogueport and hear its epic-sounding remaster. Never fear, however, because if you prefer the good old themes of the original, you can equip a badge for 0 points that will let you listen to them at any moment. I'm personally a big fan of this new soundtrack, but I also didn't grow up with the original like some of you out there did. Bit Harmony, a video game music podcast, has a great episode on it, and I'll link it down below. One thing they call out in that episode is how good the remade battle themes are, and I completely agree. Each area of the game has its own remix of the battle theme that fits the vibe of that area and also is simultaneously a jam. It's a great way to make sure the same theme playing throughout the 30-hour-long campaign never gets old. It's not luck for the Super Nintendo. I don't know much about this one, as I didn't feel the need to seek them out myself, but there are 2 super bosses present in the Thousand Year Door remake, both of which I've heard are great. Now, I've already spent 2 hours struggling with the final boss, so I will pass on that, but if that sounds like your jam, there you go. Speaking of sounding like your jam, this game also includes a pit of 100 trials, a gauntlet of attackers and enemies that goes on for way too long, or so I've heard. This is another facet of the game that I personally haven't interacted with, but I believe that one of the 2 super bosses is at the end of this rigorous ordeal. Good luck! Thousand Year Door takes the Mario 3 idea of being a stage play and blows it up 1,000-fold. Each battle takes place on a stage, with fun gimmicks coming from that, such as the set falling down, your theater size growing as you level up, and the audience supplying you with more star power. What's star power, you ask? Well, you use it to activate special moves, which you get each time you find a crystal star. All great in theory, as Paper Mario 64 does a similar thing. The difference here is that the Thousand Year Door special moves take an entire century to complete. Seriously, with the amount of buttons I'm pressing, circles I'm drawing, and hearts I'm shooting, the entire human race might be dead and replaced with anthropomorphic squid by the time I finish this attack. I'm just saying it could happen. Either way, these take way too long and slow the pacing of battles to a crawl, but you still have to do them in order to get out of multiple situations. In between chapters, you visit 2 different characters to see what they're up to. Of these 2, Bowser seems the most useless. He's always coming up behind where Mario was last, making a big stink about not being able to find Peach, and nope, I don't even have a 3rd point, that's it. There's a little 2D platformer light segment that comes with these sometimes, but it's fairly simple and rarely entertaining. I feel like these were added more for the sake of padding than to actually aid the story, especially as Bowser never really plays a huge role in the plot. I do, however, like the other interludes from Peach's perspective. These are controversial as they involve a computer falling in love with her, but I can totally buy the idea, and I feel like they did a great job of building up the tension as you progress the game. Each gives you a little bit more info on what the X-Naut's plan is, while also furthering Peach's relationship with Tech, the computer. I quite enjoyed these, especially since the story payoff at the end was so good. Remember when I complained about backtracking earlier? Well, this version of the game is slightly better on that front than the original is, adding in simple pipes to locations that you travel between multiple times for the sake of convenience. Now, this doesn't happen in every location, and is still a problem in the game, but it is way better here than the original. And there you have it, folks. I think you've heard everything you need about whether or not to pick up the game. If you're a fan of Mario RPGs, especially the Mario & Luigi series and Paper Mario 64, then go check this out. If you haven't played either of those games, I recommend playing Superstar Saga or Paper Mario 64, both available on the Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack for no extra cost. And if you enjoy those games, give Thousand Year Door a look. It's a really good game, and honestly, so far my favorite game of the year. But that's it for today. With that, leave a like, subscribe for more videos like this, and comment down your most and least favorite parts of Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. I'll see you on the Switch side.